started today off putting all this stuff in, keyways installed, and I reclocked this one and refiled it. And I don't know if you can see, but I welded that collar on the back of it too. And it does have a keyway. I'll try to let the camera focus real quick. It might not, there's too much stuff on my. But I put the keyway in it and it's got a collar welded on it and it is clocked correctly. So if you set this up to top dead center for number 1, let my camera, there's a lot to focus, so filming this sometimes gets difficult because the camera doesn't know where to focus because there's a lot of different angles. But I just spun the engine over and everything and it looks correct. You know, that's at the marks line up at top dead center for number 1, and you turn it over and this shows up at number 3. So I do not have the fuel injector bungs yet or wiring harness. So what I think I'm going to tackle next is put the turbo on, for now at least, even just for demonstration purposes. I just got some stuff I ordered from in the mail. There's some gauges here. We're gonna make a control panel. Look out, Zuri. We're gonna make a control panel right here with some switches so that I can start the engine right here, and then some gauges to monitor some stuff. So I just bought some typical gauges here. Temperature, water temp gauge, or coolant temp, voltmeter, and an oil pressure gauge. And I know a 2-stroke doesn't have oil pressure, but anything else that I put on here will. And we actually have to run a standalone oil system for the turbo. So I'm gonna have to have a oil pump, either mechanically driven off of the engine or an electronic pump, and then have an oil tank to pump oil through the turbo. So we're gonna mount these gauges here. This is just sitting here. I just found this, so I kind of wish it was a little taller, but we're just gonna mount a plate here and then install the switch panel, which the switch panel we actually got, I just sold the V8 go-kart with this exact switch panel mounted on it. I could have taken it off. So I ended up spending $20 more for this when I already had one. Oh man, this one looks different. The other one looked better. Like, oh well. It's this, just kind of the Amazon stuff, but it'll work for this. It's gonna be mounted right here, so you can start the engine and then run. Probably we'll use one of these for if we do electric oil pump, and then electric water pump, which we'll have for this, and then something later for the future. Comes with a relay and everything. So I got this piece of steel. I think this is like 11 gauge, 16 gauge. So we're gonna cut a chunk out of that, weld this, put some 90-degree things on this, weld it, and then cut an angle, put that plate on it, and then install this stuff. So we are going to get to it. In hindsight, I think that before I cut this, I should have drilled these holes just so this had more strength to it. But hindsight's 20/20, so we're just gonna drill that. So this is a 2 1/8, and that's a 2-inch. It fits very loose in this one to the point that I didn't like it. So I went to a 2-inch and it doesn't fit. So I actually needed a 2 1/16 inch hole saw to make it perfect. But we'll just kind of make these a little larger with a drill bit. So that kind of stinks, but oh well. Well, there it is. They're just sitting there. Nothing's screwed down or anything. It's just all loose. But, you know, you got your 3 temp, oil, volts, power on. Oops, my bad. Ignition start. So then, like I said before, some other stuff. But kind of stand back so you can just see where it's at a little bit. So right at like operating level for someone to walk up and just start it. I can mount a battery back here because there'll be enough room no matter what transmission, just the tail shaft will be right there. So I'll put the battery tray with a battery right there below it, and then put like a solenoid or something hooked up here, just so all the controls and stuff's in one area. But a little bit more work to make this one flush. It's got a little tab you can see there. I'm just gonna put a little mark up there for it and pull this all out, sand that, finish welding it, and then paint it black. And this whole thing I'll probably just paint black, but yep, done. So when I was picturing the battery, I pictured mounting it just flat right here, real nice and smooth. And I remembered that F350 I had, someone had done dual batteries in it, but on the driver's side, the battery, everything was just thrown in there, and it had this mount that someone just put in and like put a screw, like a wood screw through, I think it was here or something, into the plastic wheel, the inner wheel well. So I removed this and I'd put those Optimas in it. But anyway, I kept it because this could come in handy. I was originally going to just chop this lower part off and then mount this down here, just real flush. Then I was looking at it and I was like, well, that looks cool. I could mount it kind of raised up, and then a regular engine and transmission will not be as high as this one. It'll be low, so the tail shaft would be much lower and actually go, if it comes anywhere near this, which it won't, but it would be underneath the battery. And then I'll cut this little piece off so it just has this nice thing on the side. So I'm thinking it'll just add a little bit of cool factor to this stand. So I think I'm gonna mount it up here, put some welds here and welds down there, and that would be enough to hold it. And if not, I can do a gusset, a little bracket triangle. So I think I'm gonna level this and then put a tack weld here and then check everything again and then weld it and just see if it looks cool, because I think it looks pretty cool there. So I'm gonna do it. Woohoo! know if I already said this, but this was a GM plate. It said it has a sticker underneath of it. See if I can see it. If I didn't melt it. There it is. GM. It's to some GM truck or something, I bet. But I've got to pound this down on the other side, the metal right there, so that this whole thing touches. Boom. And we'll weld that, make it look good. We welded it right there, and then I added this gusset. I'm gonna clean that up, finish welding it. But it is already so strong. The whole thing just moves with it. And for just holding the battery, it'll be plenty good. Maybe I'll even chop this just straight so it looks a little cleaner. But we now have a control center with a battery right there. Hell, I could mount an oil tank underneath the battery. I don't know if that's a good idea, actually. Never mind. But things and stuff, right? I think for display purposes right now, I'm gonna put the gauges in there. There we go. Check that out. Thing looks pretty sharp. So there you can see an Optima fits perfect on here. But a battery that's the same exact size as an Optima is found in like a Honda Civic. I think it's like a 34 or 32 series or something like that. You can get them at Walmart for like 55 bucks because that battery's shot. That thing doesn't work at all. But I'll just throw a battery on it later so you can see how good it actually fits. So, and the best thing about this is, even after this engine is done being on here, anything can go on. Like this, I could just turn this around, make some brackets, bolt it on there, get engines dialed in on this. Or even just store them like this, on this at least. I think it's sweet. Yeah, I keep looking at it because I'm proud of it. But alright, I better get back to doing something. Alright, so I'm gonna change gears on this whole build. Starting to do the LS stuff, it is becoming incredibly difficult to find a good wiring harness, believe it or not. A 2007 to 2013, that's, I mean, I should be able to find one, but I can't find one that's not just chopped, and a lot of the other parts are getting harder to find as well. So there's many factors kind of telling me to go away from the LS idea. It was a good idea, and I started to dive into it. And one thing I was thinking of a couple weeks ago, and then I just read a comment, a guy commented and said the same thing and more in depth, like more thought out of what I was afraid of. So this crankshaft and where the LS crankshaft is, where they put the pistons at different times, could completely change the fact of where the piston is when it gets spark. So even though the LS, I could move the sensors and make the firing order match this thing's firing order, the piston might not be at the correct location when it gets spark. And I don't know if we can change that or what, and just a bunch of other factors that go in. So there is a guy, one of my friends, when I was doing this, he sent me a link. I think it's called BL Micro, I believe. He makes EFI for these. So I'm thinking about giving him a call and seeing what my options are. Like if I could just buy a kit or something. And then the guy that commented also said to use a micro squirt ECU, which is like adaptable. So that's another thing that we could look into. So there's a dump truck. Wait, I don't know how loud that was for you guys.
But okay, so back to this. So I am feeling like I'm getting burnt out on this. It's been, I think, 3 months now that I started this, and I've got a lot of other projects that I want to work on as well and build. So I want to get this done. So if I can get a system that's designed for it or can be adapted to it easier and more efficiently, that will work great. And I am running boost, so hopefully that stuff can work with turbos. So that's kind of where I'm at now, is looking for another thing, another ECU system. So yes. That's about it, I guess.